Good morning, everybody. Kat here. Well, life just keeps getting more and more interesting. The time loops and historical overlays between Meghan Markle, Prince Harry, and the Duke and Duchess of Windsor just keep stacking up like records on a turntable ready to be played over and over again. In the course of one generation, we're seeing historical overlays that really blow your mind. I've done a couple videos on this already, and it's just surprising to me how it's playing out almost to the day. It's quite something. In fact, 85 years ago, the Duke of Windsor and the Duchess of Windsor arrived in Germany. They had been planning a visit to talk to Hitler, to meet him, to discuss social values, governmental values, and perhaps a future role for the Duke of Windsor, being propped up by the German government. 85 years later, almost to the day. In fact, it was October 1937 when the Duke and Duchess of Windsor arrived in Germany. Here we are in September, just weeks apart, days apart, 28 days apart, almost to the day, 85 years later. Harry and Meghan arrive in Germany for the promotion of his project, the Invictus Games. What's in it for everybody? Is that the extent of the historical overlay? Well, it just is coincidence. But if you look at things at the time with the Duke and Duchess of Windsor, the Germans were very interested to have an ally in the British royal family. You'll know at this time, Edward had abdicated. Him and Wallis were pretty much persona non grata as far as the British royal family was concerned, much like Harry and Meghan today. Wallis and Edward were in fact trying to build their own court, a rival court to his brother the king. Harry and Meghan are trying to do much the same thing, still using their titles, their pseudo-royal tours, their events they attend. It's very interesting. At the time, Hitler was very interested in courting Edward. He wanted an in the royal family, you see, because he was just starting his program for his takeover, the lead up to the World War. And his plan, and I've mentioned this before, was to kind of bring Edward in and use him as a puppet with the British government. Edward at the time was all for appeasement. Let's, not get too hyped up about Hitler. Let's try to work with him, and Hitler figured he'd be a useful puppet. In fact, he, at the time, offered Edward sort of a pseudo position. You know, if you let me do what I want, I'll come in, I can roll over England, and I will place you as the de facto head of government, of course, under Hitler's remit. But Edward was a sympathizer, and he wanted that kind of fame and notoriety. He was pushed off the throne by the establishment, the government, and the church. And he was very resentful of the way that his wife was treated. You can see those parallels in Harry and Meghan today. They've been pushed out. Some say they jumped, some say they were pushed. I think they were pushed out, which gives more credence to this historical overlay as well. Harry wants his wife to have the same esteem, respect that Catherine does. You know, for what it's worth, he loves his wife. He feels she's being treated badly, and he wants her to have the royal experience. This is why everything they do, I mean, of course, it's all appearance and optics, and it doesn't really, there's no substance to what they do. But as long as the optics are there, they're happy, and, you know, they get the feeling that they're important people. So what happens now? He's got Invictus Games going on, and this is the 1-year run-up to the Invictus Games being hosted by Germany. Now, what's in it for Germany? Well, first of all, any hosting country gets just a whack of cash for being involved. That's one thing. They get big press, they get a whack of cash. It's worth it to them to be involved. So what do? They treat Harry and Meghan like this was a completely legitimate royal tour. They use a Luftwaffe jet that is normally used to fly dignitaries and heads of government and so on around. They get the use of that government jet to fly them from Britain into Dusseldorf for the meeting, you know, the big meet and greet. Look at these pictures, the pictures on the steps. Here's Harry and Meghan greeted by the mayor of Dusseldorf and other dignitaries. Look now at Wallace and Edward being greeted by all the Nazi upper echelon government officials. Of course, they met Hitler as well. I don't think there's any plan for Harry and Meghan to be meeting the Chancellor of Germany. But, you know, the overlay is there. They were treated like royalty when they arrived. Red carpet, private jet, all the pomp and ceremony, the walkabout, meeting the crowds. Now, I did hear that there was some booing, but the crowds did look pretty happy to see them. We don't know, you know, were they paid crowds, as been rumored? We don't know. But they did get a fairly friendly reception in Germany. Meghan got the royal treatment, something she's always wanted. She wants to be the top dog. She wants to feel that important, and she got her dose of it. another thing, I mean, just the psychology of the whole thing is very interesting. Uh, I don't know if you know, but you should know the British royal family isn't British at all. They're German. It was in the 20s when the king at the time, after World War I, said, this is not looking real good. At the time they were known as the House of Saxe, Gotburg, Gotha. Very German. So he took it upon himself with some advisors. They had to come up with a British name to make themselves appear more British, because it really wasn't in the best interest and public perception for Britain to supposedly be fighting a war and with Germany, and the whole royal house was German, and they had a German name. It was like very bad optics. So that's how the House of Windsor was born. I mean, it was just like okay, we'll call ourselves the Windsors. And it was declared after that, and so you have the House of Windsor. Even the Queen's uncle, Louis Mountbatten, his name at the time, the family name, was Battenberg, another German royal house. All the royals and secondary royals, all the titles at this time were changed to give them a more British sounding surname. It was absolutely, public relations 101. You can't be associated with these guys anymore. And over the course of time, of course, Germany has barons and, minor pseudo-royals still kicking around, but they don't have a royal house. And after 2 world wars and many years, their association with Britain has been cut. Now, what we have is a situation you can kind of, it does mirror situations back then. You had Germany was the powerhouse, Hitler was in charge, and the plan was to take over the world. Where are we now? Well, we have the European Union. Germany's the de facto head, although it's a consortium of countries. They're the ones with the money. They're the ones with the industry. They're the tail that wags the dog of the European Union. It's in their best interest to create a connection, even with a pseudo-royal. They want that connection. They want some influence back over the royal family, my opinion. And here's why. I've talked about the spider before. The consortium of, World Economic Forum, World Bank, the EU, there's the Vatican, there's the Royal House of Windsor. All these entities at the top of the heap that can control certain factions of society, money, government, economics. For the longest time, the elites have all had their little piece, what they were in control of, what they did, how to move the agenda forward, and for centuries, in fact, they've seemed to work together towards a common goal, which in my opinion is basically world domination. The elites at the top running the show, and to really move the rest of us into a state of feudalism as Klaus Schwab has said before, you'll own nothing and you'll love it. This is their plan for us. You can see it in the manipulation of the markets, the push for a one world digital currency, one world government. All the governments across the board are implementing the same kind of laws and restrictions at the same time. So you gotta know it's a plan. Things like the whole pandemic and their response, their medical response to that. Across the board around the world, everybody was in lockstep. Goose step is another word for that. So it's in Germany's best interest to bring in someone with a little bit of influence that they can put out front, another puppet, much as the same as Hitler was trying to do with Edward at the time. He wanted a puppet because the plan is, these guys are all working now for the same agenda, but when you get to the top and there's very few at the top, those guys are going to start fighting between themselves to get more power. And the Royal House of Windsor, being one of the top dogs in the elitist groups that are running the world, well, there's factions that would like to eliminate them. That's one less competitor for the spoils, you might say. And I think the whole Harry and Meghan and how she's being propped up, I think there's big stuff behind that. They want to draw a wedge into the royal family and weaken it because it's easier to go after a lame dog than one that's powerful. I really think there's an agenda there, and I think this currying of favor with Harry, we know he's got a big chip on his shoulder against the royal family. Him and Meghan have done nothing but disparage them from the beginning. There's books coming out, possibly more interviews. Harry's relentless. He's not going to stop. He's an angry man, and he's ready. He's ready. So he is a perfect puppet for a larger entity to try to pull the whole thing down. And that's what I think is going on. History repeating itself. The time loop keeps rolling on, almost to the day the events are mirroring the past. Very interesting, very surprising, and I can't wait to see, as events roll on, how those records stack up. And we'll hear the same song over and over. Have a great day, everybody. Like and subscribe and leave a comment. Let's continue this conversation. Bye for now.